And welcome back to Chicago Bulls Insider. Today, we are talking about if Matas Buzelis just dropped a major tip into Josh Giddey signing with the Chicago Bulls. We're also going to be talking about the NBA schedule dropping and the key takeaways from that, along with the major storylines for the Chicago Bulls heading into this upcoming season. And so before we go ahead and we jump into it, I first want to remind you to slam dunk on that subscribe button, just like Matas Buzelis slam dunks in games. And so in exchange for slamming on that subscribe button, I'm going to give you nothing but daily content around the Chicago Bulls. Make sure that you hit that like, you hit that subscribe, and you join the Chicago Bulls Insider family as we talk nothing but Chicago Bulls basketball. And so with that being said, let's go ahead and let's jump into it. And let's start with the first news around a possible clue of Josh Giddey signing. And so if you've not got a chance to see this, you can head over to this article title. This is pretty much everywhere, but it says that cryptic Matas Buzelis post, hence Bulls finally have Josh Giddey resolution. And so within this article, it takes you to a post, I believe, here on Instagram, and they say that they believe it is Matas Buzelis' second social media account. And so here is the actual post. If you want to go check this out, once again, head over to that article. It just says that at Josh Giddey with the pen and the contract. And so here's my thoughts. I'm not sure that I'm necessarily sold on it saying that Josh Giddey and the Chicago Bulls are coming closer to a resolution for a contract. In fact, when I look at this, I actually could see something along the lines of, maybe Matas Buzelis suggesting that, hey, what are we doing here? Are we going to get a contract done with Josh Giddey? And so I think that you could look at it from that aspect as well. But anyway, you guys let me know in the comments, do you think that this is Matas Buzelis dropping a clue that Josh Giddey is getting ready to get signed? Or do you feel like that this is Matas Buzelis perhaps maybe putting it out there like, hey, we need to get a deal done? And so I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on that. So next thing I wanted to jump into is the NBA schedule releasing here. And so, initially my first kind of early reaction to this is that the Chicago Bulls are only going to be on national television 3 times. And I'm talking about the nationally televised games, for everybody. And so that just makes me think initially, when we talk about all-stars and we talk about players possibly getting a chance to be all-stars and things like that, the fan votes are extremely important. And so the fact that the Bulls are only going to be, out there 3 times, for everybody to see, I want to know how that's going to play in, to the possibility of players maybe getting to the All-Star team. Now we'll see what happens. These players obviously still have to go out there, put in the work, put in the season. But I would like to see if we do have players that are trending towards being an all-star, if this is going to help or hurt them. But that is like my first key takeaway out of the schedule release is that the Bulls are only going to be nationally televised. There are 3 games. And so I want to see how that's going to impact, some of these all-star votes and things like that. And so the next thing that I wanted to talk about with the schedule being released is just early storylines. And so there are 3 early storylines that really come to mind here. And I think that the first storyline for me for this upcoming season is going to start with Matas Buzelis. And I think for me, and I think if you just really check in around, I think a lot of Bulls fans, they're talking about, can Matas Buzelis take a major step in this upcoming season? Because we saw, just what he could do as a starter towards the end of the season. We saw how he was able to really come along with just being limited as a rookie. And so being limited as a rookie, he was able to take Patrick Williams' spot. He has not looked back from that. And he showed us some great flashes of athleticism. I'm just thinking of that Luka dunk that he had in Staples Center that was just absolutely nasty. He had a game in which he didn't miss a shot. He was terrific with some of these Euro steps and things like that. I love the confidence that we saw from the 3 ball. And then I love what we saw with the block shots, which suggests to me that if he becomes a better on-ball defender, you're looking at a player that's not only going to impact the Bulls on the offensive end, but he is going to be an impact on the defensive end as well. And so I think year 2, looking for the development here of Matas Buzelis has to be the number 1 key storyline for me going into this upcoming season. And so the next storyline that I'm looking at heading into this season is going to be around Josh Giddey and Coby White. I think that these two players are going to definitely be a huge storyline for the Bulls this season, because with Josh Giddey, I think that a lot of the questions are going to be around, hey, was it for real? Because we saw just an excellent stretch of basketball towards the end, going back to what he said in his press conference, that he said that he is more of the player that we saw towards the end than he was at the beginning. You have to give him a ton of credit coming off the ankle injury after the long summer, really, because I believe he did play in the Olympics. And so the long summer, got injured, came off of that. And then also, too, just what was going on initially with the Chicago Bulls and just the Zach LaVine situation. Eventually, they moved on from him, made some roster adjustments, and kind of opened it up for Josh Giddey. I think he was able to take a step forward there. So let's see if that growth continues. But with Coby White, he's right there. And I think that with Coby White, he steps into a constant role. And now, do we get a chance to see his game take a step forward? Because this is going to be really an interesting season for him, because he is just on this last year of his contract. You're going to hear a lot of the trade noise and things like that. And AK has said that he wants to commit to this backcourt. And so I think that this is a big time storyline for two of these guys, because they can go out there and show that they can be really the backcourt that the Chicago Bulls should go with. And I think for them, it's really just turning a lot of these skeptics into believers. And so let's see if that's what they can do. I would love to see Coby White have quite the season and really take off, because I do think that he could get to that mid-range a little bit more. He could become an even better player, maybe off the ball with these screens and things like that, and becoming a knockdown shooter that way. And so I loved what both of these guys did as far as getting downhill and getting to the free throw line. I think that they're both going to need to do more of that to take a step forward. And so they're going to have the runway and the opportunity here, and they don't have anybody in the way. So this is why I think that this is going to be a big storyline heading into the season. Next thing that I'm looking forward to seeing is going to be Tre Jones. And so I want to know, is it for real with Tre Jones? Because Tre Jones really showed us some things here coming off of the bench, and then also too being a starter, towards the end of the season. And I think that the way that Tre Jones was able to play for the Chicago Bulls really kind of made it I think, okay for the Bulls to move on from Lonzo Ball. I think that he was really that insurance policy for them. And I'd said this before. I think that he did a lot of stuff that Lonzo Ball did not. I get it. He's not him, but he just did a lot of those things. And so I think that we saw a player that was very solid on both ends of the floor. You see a guy that can be a natural point guard. You see a guy that is very crafty with his finishes around the basket and stuff like that. Not like a high volume type of 3-point shooter, but he was certainly effective when he was open. And I just think that he's terrific as far as just getting the offense, in movement and rhythm and things like that. And so I think he's going to have really a huge chance to take a step forward. We had heard that Billy Donovan definitely wanted Tre Jones back. And so let's see if his role does kind of take a step forward with this team. And so I want to see just how real it is with Tre Jones. And so, I know it says 3, but I wanted to throw a couple bonuses out there, because I think that one of my bonus storylines going into this season, it's going to be Issac Okoro. And I think with him, what I am really looking to see out of this situation is that AK does not want to go into just a full, on rebuild where the team is bad or whatnot. He wants to go out there. He wants to get players that have experience. And this is what you're going to get with Issac Okoro. And so I want to see, can he be a player that turns things around? Because I think that with Josh Giddey, he found himself towards the end of the season. And so can Issac Okoro come in and really turn things around initially with the chance that he's going to get with the Chicago Bulls? Because look, even if he struggles offensively, defensively, they need him. And so he has a real chance to carve out a role. And I think he can find himself offensively, and you don't have to run a play for Issac Okoro because he's athletic. I think he's going to run with you. He's going to be able to get some looks as a slasher, and then the 3 balls are going to be open for him as well. And so let's see what happens with Issac Okoro, and if he can really prove that AK and this front office actually have a plan and that it's worthwhile as far as hanging in there as fans. And so that is my first bonus storyline. And then my last bonus storyline, I think, coming into this season it's going to be around just Noa Essengue and Matas Buzelis. I think that both of these guys are really part of the future for you. And I think if Noa Essengue is just like Matas Buzelis as far as the mentality is concerned, there's the real possibility that when Billy Donovan does give him a chance, and this, this is counting that he's not in the G League as often as I think a lot of people are just really predicting. And so let's just on the same projection path as Matas Buzelis, he gets a chance to dress, he's on the bench or whatnot. If he can get into the game and show those type of flashes like a Matas Buzelis and just show that, for number one, he can lock in defensively, and number two, he's fearless on the offensive end when he gets his opportunities, there's a chance that he could take a very big step forward. And that also, too, would really validate what AK is trying to do as far as building this team. And so those two bonus storylines could be big as far as the team build. So you guys let me know in the comments, what are your, early storylines going into this season? Because again, there's so much to look at with the schedule. I think that that is something that we talk about a little bit more once we get out of training camp and just really how this team is going. I just think that the biggest thing out of the schedule was that they just don't have a lot of nationally televised games, which really could impact, the players that you think could possibly jump into, I think, an all-star role this year. And so let's see what happens, because again, the fans vote a lot on this. And so, the next thing I wanted to talk about too is just what did you guys think about just that Instagram post? Is it really giving us a clue that Josh Giddey is closer to signing with the Chicago Bulls? Or do you think that this is more of like a, hey, by the way, are we going to get this thing done? So I'd love to hear what your thoughts are. And look, as we always say, go Bulls, and I will see you guys on the next one. All right, peace.